This low traffic neighbourhood scheme, in principle, sounds very nice, clean air. What's the problem with it? Explain it.
Well, basically, firstly, it's undemocratic because every time there's been a so-called consultation with very loaded questions, they ignore the majority of the respondents. So, for instance, there are 17,000 people in Hackney that were presented as a petition to Mayor Philip Glanville, the Mayor of Hackney. He's flagrantly disregarded that. We've seen the same in Oxford, where 93% had comments saying they didn't want it when they put the consultation forward. And this is true of Haringey as well, with 65%. So the first point is democracy. The next point is that it actually simply moves traffic to other areas. It creates huge congestion. It stops everything from deliveries to people being able to do the school run properly, see elderly families, people with disabilities are really massively impacted. Now in Bath, we've seen 15 LTNs go up. They say they want to have 48. And we have a public debate that we had organised in Bath. And you know what, Bev? Our venue was actually stopped. Somehow it got cancelled because they told us at the time they thought it was too political, but then they said it was about numbers. But we've got a new venue, Bev, in Bath that we're doing a big public debate tonight at. We've invited Bath and North East Somerset Council, the councillors, both Sarah Warren and Amanda Rigby. But the main thing is that this is about locals. You know, the Together Association, our declaration, we have hundreds of signatories and members in every area. They try and present this as outsiders coming in. They've done that in Hackney. I'm a resident in Hackney. People say, well, we don't want these outsiders. But actually, as our videos show at the Together Declaration on our socials, this is about residents, shopkeepers, people in hospitality, grandmothers. There's a grandmother in Oxford that's done a really compelling video saying these new bus gates and the 15-minute neighbourhood is going to really impact her. We've seen shops being closed down just recently in Haringey after Tara did a video about the impacts and 65% not wanting them. She's had to close her business down in Haringey and move. We've seen in Oxford a restaurateur after 15 years having to close it only last week because of low traffic neighbours. And of course, Clint Pugh, who spent 30 years regenerating the area, faces the closure of one of his businesses. So it's London, but it's also other areas. And we would really invite people in Bath to come along tonight, and also to have councillors come and have a public debate and stop trying to smear people. It seems that whenever people don't want to debate something or discuss it, and as you know, as we've just seen recently, there's been significant attempts to stop all sorts of debates recently, and with the online safety bill just going through the second hearing at the moment in the Lords, it's vital that we get to discuss this with local residents and businesses. Councillors should explain the merits of their views, why they're not listening to local residents and businesses. These are about damaging harms and impacts, and it's essential. And that's why we say it together. We've got to take back democracy and free our streets, because the public needs to have our voices heard.
Absolutely. I've been inviting onto this show several local councillors, local mayors, MPs from these areas to come on and explain the benefits of these significant changes to the road layouts in the areas. And none of them will accept the invitation, Alan Miller. That's what's so depressing. And I think, if I've understood this correctly, your argument at Together primarily is not necessarily about the planet. It isn't necessarily about pushing back and saying these eco measures aren't warranted. You want to see these decisions being put in the hands of a democratic process in those areas and how it's going to affect local people. Is that right?
Absolutely right. I mean, there's a big discussion to be had about the question of the climate, but we're told that we're at a permanent emergency. We saw it with the response to COVID. We're now seeing it in the discussion about the climate. It seems that at every measure, we've got to have permanent emergencies. And it should be known that these low traffic neighbourhoods, these LTNs, were brought in stealth. There were a few before, but during lockdown. And they've kind of now sprung up in many areas, and now many more are being proposed. And a lot of people don't even know about them. Yeah. The consultations didn't go to that many people. That's why we're saying take back democracy. We've got to have local residents, citizens in Britain being able to hold these questions in an open debate. Let councillors and the central government, Bev, because the central government is funding this as well. It's fines. You know, when did we agree as a nation or locally that you would have to negotiate your mobility? right? We've never had that discussion. Yet all of a sudden, people don't like saying it's not new forms of lockdowns and restrictions. Oxford responded very starkly to that. But actually, if you look at the logic, what they're saying is we are going to fine, a bit like feudal times, we are going to fine you to move out of areas. We're going to impose taxes. It's a stick. It hasn't been agreed on, and we need to have a wide discussion. So that's why people in Bath should join us tonight. We hope that Bath and North East Somerset Council will attend. But what we really are going to do, like on our other campaigns, is we're going to be doing calls to action, asking councillors and MPs and Mark Harper in the Cabinet, the Transport Minister, why these things are happening. We need to really end them and have a proper democratic discussion about our urban planning plans.
Alan, is your mind put at rest at all by the statement from Bath on the LTNs? They say it is just a trial. No decisions will be made on whether to make this scheme permanent until the council has reviewed all of the comments, which people can still submit until May the 17th. So they're just trying it. May not work.
Well, you know, we told that these are trials, and yet what we see is each one builds on the other. So there's a trial of 15, then there's 48. Like in Oxford, there's a trial of LTNs, and then it becomes a 15-minute neighbourhood. Now they've got another trial on top of those two trials to actually impact health workers and key workers in schools to impose more charges on top of these trials. So they call them trials, but yet they're very kind of zealous about the implementation of them. We should remember that there's a lot of money being made out of all these things. That's a huge incentive, both from central government and themselves. And we need to insist on proper services, how we can get housing and transport done properly. And that takes having the public at the heart of it. And that's what Together wants to make happen. And we've got local and regional groups doing this across the country.
OK, well done. Alan Miller there from the Together Association.